Anyone else? Okay, next topic, discrimination. I know Sammy's got do you mind sharing your story?
All right. The long and short of it is that we have to pray 5 times a day. It was time for the nightfall prayer. We're walking in the Giants Stadium for the Hurricane Katrina game. We're actually there supporting our country, which is the ironic part. So we walk in, and it's like 8:15, and prayer runs out at like 8:18, right? So, because, we have to pray within that time limit. We go over to like a little corner, we pray, we go up to our seats. About an hour and a half later, at halftime, all of a sudden, there's some ruckus to the right of us, actually, before this. I think that's how they knew us. Some girl's taking off her top, so she's surrounded by police officers, right? So we're not looking, right, Mom? Right? We're not looking. and
wife, too.
You heard
yeah,
it.
wife,
Just heard.
right. Yeah, we heard this one. So all of a sudden, those same officers that were surrounding her are now surrounding us. So my first inclination is, oh, no, we have nothing to do with that. I thought they thought we were associated with it, right? So I was like, no, we have not. They're like, get up out of your seats now. We're like, why? They're like, get up now.
How many people are with you?
It was me and 4 of my friends, and now there's 9 officers around us, 9 of those big yellow jacket Giant Stadium security guards, right? So we're like, no, we have nothing to do with that. Like, what don't you understand? Get up now. Okay, fine. So we finally get up, because I see 3 state troopers at the bottom of the stairs. So we get up.
And everyone's looking at you guys at this point?
Oh, they're not looking at us. They're yelling at us. People are
yelling what?
Saying, like, get those terrorists out of here. One guy said, now I feel safer. Like all kinds of like derogatory terms. Because me and
were they saying that before the cops?
Oh no, before the cops, we were just fans, you know. But then after that, it's mob mentality, and of course, Giants game, everyone's drunk, right? So we're walking down the stairs. They're all yelling, throwing stuff at us. So we get down. Now there's this entourage. They formed a circle around us, and each one of the officers has us like this, grabbing us, right? And then there's this trailed by 3 state troopers. So now I'm going crazy. I'm like, what is this, the 40s and 50s? I was like, I'm a law student, I know my rights. The state trooper just looks at me, he's like, if you know your rights, you should know you're on private property. I was like, oh, okay, so we can have a blacks only entrance now, right? And a whites only, and then, Africans and Daisies over here, right? Because that's what our society's about. Of course not. So they walk us through this whole hall, completely embarrassing, right? Everything, but I wanted to yell. Why? Because if somebody's yelling with cops holding them and saying stuff, you might actually listen, and then you actually look at that person and you might say, well, he can't be arrested because they would shut him up if he was being arrested. This must be something else. And then people were listening because I wanted them to know that we weren't being held for any just reason. I'm not the quiet type of guy, I guess. So we get to the end of the hall, and who's there? Our friends, the FBI, right? So we're like, what the heck? Get up against the wall. Why? Get up against the wall. Okay, we still have no idea what the heck happened. Finally, we go into the room. Everybody give us your identification, and now there's 5 FBI agents with us 5 sitting in the room. We're like, what's going on? They're like, look, the guy gets literally within 6 inches of me. He's like, look, there's an easy way and a hard way to do this. And I was like, he's like, and you don't want to take the hard way. I was like, all right, we'll take the easy way. Like, you don't mess with federal agents, right? So we sat down. They asked us all kinds of questions. At first, very innocent questions. Like, where are you from? What are you doing? Typical questions. Then what mosque do you go to? Do you go to this mosque in Jersey City? Do you know Sheikh Abdurrahman, who's like the 1993 World Trade Center bombing? Who? Like, I was like, me? Right? First of all, I would have been 11 years old, right? But let's ignore that fact. Why would I know him? Because I'm at a Giants game? What's the connection? And then they're walking the whole time, this sort of. Then they finally put us back in these, after like an hour. We missed the whole game. So they put us back in the game with 2 minutes left in these other seats that weren't our seats. I wanted to go back to my seats. So
better seats or worse seats?
Equivalent. So even though they lied in the newspapers and they said that they were better. So they put us back in these seats, and we're the only row in the entire stadium that has 4 security guards standing at the end of our row. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 row guards. And 2 rows in front of us, just by chance, is this guy who keeps turning around taking pictures of us. The game's in front of him, but yeah, he's taking pictures this way, right? I don't know, undercover agent, I don't know. So when we're walking out, they walk us back to our cars, take down our license plates, and while we're walking, I'm having this conversation with the FBI. What was it? What did we do? Was it because I'm Muslim? He's like, well, we got to complain. I was like, that's it, just one complaint. He's like, that's all it takes. I'm like, that's the threshold. So I was like, if I complain about this guy right here, and I just pointed to a regular white guy with khakis and blue jeans, I'm saying he's suspicious. He's wearing khakis. Is that good enough? He's like, no. I was like, oh, so you need keywords: Muslim, terrorist, And he just looks at me and he says, it's a dirty word, but it's called profiling. The FBI agent is telling me this. So at that point, I'm like, that's it. It's clear as day now, right? So we get in our car and they take down our license plate numbers. And actually, a week later, they visited one of our friends, asking even more questions. You know, how do you know them? Are you guys related to any terrorist organization? And that's when we decided, you know, that's it. We have to take this public. So I called the ACLU. I called everybody. And then, thank God, it made national publicity. And, you know, we got an apology and whatnot. But it's still, you know, that's the type of ignorance, you know. What was it? They said, in the end, the FBI said, it's because we prayed next to an air duct. That's an air duct, right? Everywhere you go, every room you go into, there's an air duct. Who doesn't pray next to an air? Like, if we're praying next to an air duct by default. If we're inside a building.
I hear that story, I get pissed off. How do you feel about it?
How
did you feel about it then? How do you feel about it now?
I was livid then, and now it's just my, you know, springboard to educate more people. Because my entire school
so you're not pissed
knows
off
about it. I'm pissed off at the people at the top. Because every guard that we were talking to, even the FBI agents, at one point got to a human level with us, and they're like, "Listen, dude, I understand you're preaching to the choir here." That's what they were telling me. They're like, "We know what you're going through, but we have orders." So it's the top guys. It's these top FBI guys that are saying, "Search them, do this, do that." And you know, and that whole story about us praying next to air ducts was bogus because there was actually another. After they read our story, there was another 5 Indian guys that came up, and obviously they're Hindu. They're not praying next to an air duct, right? They're just enjoying the game, and they got stopped too, and they got asked the same sort of questions, you know. So yeah, it annoys me. But then when I'm walking through the halls of my law school, you know, I have kids coming up to be like, "Yo, fight on, brother." You know, like, you know, there's more people behind you than you know, stuff like that. And my whole class is, you know, sympathetic and responsive. So it really feels. I mean, in the end, you get a nice feeling because even like the way I was really worried that CNN and Times and all these people were going to twist our story, but in the end, they actually made it like what it was. You know, they didn't try to take our side or their side. They tried to, and for what they can give it, like a minute, 2 minutes on their broadcast, they did do it some justice. So, I mean, I do feel angry, and it could have happened to any one of us just from walking, right? Just because we happen to be brown or happen to do something that one person thinks is suspicious. And then what? Then our lives are turned around because of that? I mean, we are now in a database because of that. So every time I get onto a flight, I'm probably going to have, I mean, I haven't been on a flight since that day, but every time I get, you know, I'm going to be faced with that, right? Because now I have this record, because that's what they do, because our lawyer found out that's what they do. They database you, not to like go after you, but if there's another occurrence, then they're going to link it back to this, and they'll be like, oh, he was at Giant Stadium this time. Let's see what the connection is. You know, why? Why am I put in that database? Why can you be put in that database?
So it's fair to say the anger that you experience from that is what's driving you to do good now?
I mean, the anger that I felt from that, I mean, that's just like a symptom of the problem. I mean, I've felt that from before September 11th, you know, but it was that turning point, you know, and even before that, you know, that September 11th, that, you know, I was sitting in the office like, you know, and people are like, those effing Muslims and this and that, and I'm just like, you know, what am I gonna do, right? Everyone said, you know, what do you do? And even like a Sikh guy was killed out in Texas for this, right? I mean, he's not even Muslim, but he's brown. You know, that's all. We're all together. It doesn't matter. We're all one people now. They don't care that you're gonna say, you know, I believe in this guy or they don't care. They see you're brown. That's all they want.
So what do you say to someone like that I grew up with, like a white guy from Ohio? That's like, no, man. No matter what you say, Sammy, it's true. Muslims are doing this and that. Because to tell you the truth, I've been telling people about this, and some people, well, that's just some of the stuff they have to face. You know what I mean? What do you say to those people that aren't willing to change their way of thinking?
I mean, there's a short answer and a longer answer. I mean, the short answer is, you know, just open your mind. You know, we're all humans. You know, if something happens to me, you know, I'm bleeding, I'm dying. You know, we're all on. I mean, you break it down to a human level. Did God create all of us? I mean, if they believe in God, did God create? Yeah. I mean, then how am I different than you? What? Because of my skin color? You know, because people can't refuse that argument. If you break it down to a human level, you can't refuse that argument. But on a higher level, you could say, you know, if they're more inclined toward being educated, you could say, well, listen, these are my beliefs. 5 times a day, I have to pray. You know, and believe it or not, after September 11th, you know, Qur'ans were sold out of Barnes and Noble. In our religion, God tells us that there's no such thing as just pure evil. like in everything bad, in a calamity, there's still good. So even in that worst, this is the worst thing that possibly can happen in humanity, there was still some good that came out of it. And that was that people are now looking into who are Muslims. And a lot of people aren't taking that perspective that they're all terrorists. They're actually buying the Quran and they're like, oh, their beliefs are really similar to mine. They believe in Jesus and John, and they believe you shouldn't steal and kill. So in the end, there's a higher wisdom. It's God's wisdom. God let it,
Right.
made it happen, and that's it.
AJ, what do you think about that?
About his experience?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's terrible. I had no idea that it was you, because I had heard about it. And, I absolutely had no idea, and that's why, telling the story, meeting you makes it hit home a lot harder. I think it's ridiculous that it happened at all. And what's sad is that I think that, obviously Sammy's example was a very, very extreme and sad and terrible experience, but it's not limited to just those kind of experiences where people feel really hurt and it pushes them to that other level of trying to educate people. When I was in Atlanta, this was right after 9/11. I was driving someone to the airport, and granted it was partly my fault. I kind of cut off this guy because I was dropping somebody off at the departure lounge. So I kind of cut this guy off. Probably not the best thing to do, but his reaction was totally not warranted. He called me an effing raghead. I don't have anything on my head. It's a completely ridiculous thing to say, completely out of context. But, just as much as your situation hurt you, and obviously, like I said, it was a much more extreme example, that situation hurt me in the same way. And, in terms of educating people and making people feel more knowledgeable about what we have to go through and how they're misconceiving who we are, what we are, etc. It's the same thing on the basic level. You went through what I went through. It's the same thing. So I think that people experience this kind of stuff all the time, and it's just a matter of trying to get the most positive out of that. Trying to make people understand that it's more.
Were you pissed off for a long time
Yeah.
with that? At all white people, or was it a white person?
Not at all. Because then you're doing the same thing that they're doing.
Exactly, I agree.
So
with you.
that's a ridiculous response. The response was, this guy's a freaking idiot. Obviously, he's not smart, or he's been raised in a very ignorant way by himself or by the people around him, whatever it may be.
I agree, because like I said before, let's be honest, people in our own communities do the exact same
Absolutely.
thing. Our
Absolutely.
parents, our friends, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.